Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing extremely well. Just in case you're for the first time over here, welcome to the channel. And if you don't know me, I go by the name Striver in the programming community. If you want to check me out, you can definitely check me out on LinkedIn. I'll be leaving my LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, all the social media handles in the description below. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So Take You Forward is a full-fledged interview preparation website that I run on my end. So if you're someone who has 3 months to like 6 months of time left for interviews, I will definitely ask you out to check this Striver's SD sheet. Trust me, this is one of the most followed resources in the country as of now. What does this resource gives you? It gives you 191 well-curated problems such that all your DS Algo concepts will be covered. But only prerequisite is you should be well-versed with the basics of DS Algo in order to start with. Now, if you're someone who's a beginner, you can definitely check out our Striver's A to Z DSA course or sheet. Now, over here, what I've done is I've curated 455 steps. Every step has been curated properly and you will get all the problem links, everything. Imagine you open dynamic programming, you want video, you get videos for everything. So all the hard topics have been covered. You'll find videos for all the hard topics. Now we will be starting off to cover all the basic topics. So this is the video where we'll be starting to cover from the step 1.1. In case you have doubt about the credibility, you can go to our LinkedIn page and you can check out all the success stories, or you can follow me on LinkedIn and you can see how many people do tag me. And also you can check out our Instagram story highlights. So if you go to Instagram, there's a highlight as success stories. Over there, you can check out all our success stories. Like there are thousands and thousands of success stories of the Striver's SD sheet. And now we are starting off with Striver's A to Z DSA course sheet, which is for beginners or intermediate level people. Today we will be covering the step 1.1, that is things to know in C++, Java, Python, or any language. Now, in order to start off with data structures and algorithms, you have to pick up any one language. It can be C++, Java, Python, or JavaScript, and you have to code in that language. Make sure you master one language. Now, in the previous video, I've already talked about C++ versus Java, so you can definitely check out that video. So in this video, I'll be telling you about C++, and I'll be covering all these basic stuffs related to C++. And in the next video, we will be covering the Java one. आप लोग सोच रहे हैं ना कि क्या ही लाइफ जी रहे भैया, तो यार आप लोग भी जी सकते हो. मतलब पढ़ाई तो करना है तो पढ़ाई कर लो यार. तो अगर आपको क्यूरेटेड रिसोर्सेज नहीं मिल रहे, स्ट्रक्चर्ड पाथ ऑफ लर्निंग नहीं मिल रहा है, आई थिंक यू शुड डेफिनेटली चेक आउट कोडिंग ninjas, बिकॉज़ वेब डेवलपमेंट हो गया, डेटा स्ट्रक्चर एल्गोरिथम्स हो गया, इंटरव्यू प्रिपरेशन हो गया, मशीन लर्निंग हो गया, कोई भी चीज आप बोल लो, कोडिंग ninjas कम्स अप विद द बेस्ट क्यूरेटेड एंड कंटेंट के बारे में. The service is top notch. अगर आपको extra discount चाहिए, there's a link in the description. Make sure you check them out. I'll be using VS Code in order to code. I'll be writing my C++ code over here. I'll be giving the input over here, and whatever the code generates as an output will be produced over here. So before starting the C++ video, I'd love to mention 2 points. First is, please make sure you watch the video till the end. You might be knowing C++, but there are a lot of things that I'll be covering in this video which you might know or you might like find it very interesting. So make sure you watch the video till the end. The second point is again very important. When you're learning something for the first time, do not dig deep too much into certain things, because what happens is when we start off, we start to think that okay, every certain thing we'll learn in depth, and eventually we are stuck in the beginning process and we do not move ahead. So what I'll recommend you is first learn the basics and do not dig much. And eventually when you'll go from beginner to intermediate to medium and then to hard, you will on this flow, you will be learning everything in depth. But during your start, do not dig deep so much. Why? Do not do a lot of why. It is good to do, but there are certain things where you should not do a lot of whys, because that will be not required in the longer run. So the first thing in order to write a C++ code is the skeleton of C++ code. Now, the skeleton of C++ code stays constant across all the programs that you'll be writing in C++. Now, something like hash include. So we write hash include. Now, imagine the first program that we will be writing is to print our name. So the skeleton states, okay, you have to print. You have to probably print something, which is you have to give an output, or let's say you have to take an input. So in order to take an input or take an output, we have to use this particular library. Now, as I said, do not dig deep. You don't have to know what is inside this library. Yes, if you want to know it is okay, but you don't have to remember this. So if you use this library, this allows you to take input and produce an output. And in order to use this library in C++, we can use the hash include. So hash include IOStream. Imagine if you want to use something like a mathematical function, which exists in the C++ library, then you have to use something like a math.h. I'll be talking about mathematical functions afterwards. In case you want to use something like a string, then you use hash include string. So whatever library you want to use, you have to hash include it. You don't need to know what is inside the library. As I said, do not dig much deep. And then you say int main. And then you say return 0. So this is the generic skeleton of the code. I'll remove this couple of hash includes because as of now, we are just going to print. So this is the generic skeleton of a C++ code. After this, I said, I'm going to print my name. So I'll be like cout. So when I write cout, it means you have to, that allows you to give an output. Okay. Now, in order to use cout, you have to write std and double colon. So cout is a function which exists under the std. Okay. So you have to say std, can you give me cout? And then 2 lower than signs, and then double quotes if you're printing a string, and you can say, hey, Striver. And then you can give this. So what I'll do is I'll go and run this. So the moment I run this, you see in the output screen, we have, hey, Striver. So in case you want to again print this, so go across and copy paste the same line and again run this. So what happens is, hey, Striver is printed 2 times, but they are printed on the same line. In case you want to print them in different lines, you can go ahead and give a \n, and you can just, so the moment you compile this, what happens is the \n goes across and prints it in the new line. So very simple. Can we use something else? Yes. Instead of a \n, we can take std and l, and we can again compile. So if we compile, endl is similar to \n. Endl or \n takes you to the next line, but usually people use \n because it is faster. Okay, but you will find people using both, so it is your choice. If you want to print something on the same line, you can again print something like hey Raj. You can again print, and again you can give something like endl. There is no limitations on the thing that you want to print on the same line. you can print as many things over here on the cout, and that will be printed according to the functions that you give. Like over here, you give an endl, so that is why haste driver, heyraj, and haste driver are printed on new lines. So this is how you give. Now something must be very annoying, which is this std. Now for any functions, for most of the functions, you have to write std double colon double colon. This is very annoying, right? This is where something like using namespace comes in. So we say, hey, can you use the namespace std? So basically what this means is, if you're not giving anything, if you're not stating anything, it eventually says, since you have written using namespace std, again, you don't have to dig deep. The moment you say this, the program always uses std for all the functions. Yes, always uses std for all the functions. Now if you compile, it prints everything. Now it looks a easier task, isn't it? So this is how you can easily write. Okay, now let's quickly have an input. Imagine you want to take an input. So imagine you want to take an integer as an input, int x. So this is how you take an input. It's a scene of x. Scene means input into this variable, input into this variable. Now imagine in the input, I go across and I say 10, and I'll be like, let's print this x guy. So I'll be like, value of x, and then I can go ahead and write x. If I go and print this, you will see value of x is printed as 10. What happened? You printed this particular string, and then you said space, and then you printed x. So this x was taken from here. Got it? Now imagine if you want to take two variables as input. So if you want to take two variables as input, you can give it like this. And over here, you can give them in the same line, the value of x, and then you can go ahead and say, and y, and you can probably write this as back this one and this. So what happens is value of x and y. Now, do you need to give them in the same line? You can give them in different lines as well, and it will still run in the similar fashion. So this is how you can take any inputs. So what happens is the first thing gets into the first scene, the next thing gets into the next scene. So depending on how you are writing scene, line by line, everything gets into variables that you're initializing it with. Now you might be thinking, what is this int? Now, there are certain things as data types, which I'll be talking about. But before moving into data types, now, as I said, there are a bunch of libraries. Imagine you're taking string, integer, let's say a lot of other data types, or a lot of other libraries. Will you be writing hash include, hash include, hash include, hash include every time? No, it's going to take you a lot of time. This is where C++ says, hey, I've got something better for you. I say, can I write bits, std, C++.h. Now, what it does is, it includes all the libraries, everything. Whatever libraries are there in C++, everything is included under this bits slash std C++.h. You might think, but Striver, in order to include so many libraries, we will be taking a lot of time. Yes, we do take a lot of time, but that is very negligible compared to the time that your program takes to run. So that is why it is okay to include bits slash std C++.h. Yeah, it takes a bit more time, but that is okay. Again, if you want to check out what are the libraries inside this, you can definitely Google this and you'll get all the list of libraries that are inside this particular directory. So this is what is the common skeleton of the code that we will be using to write any C++ program on the planet. So you have discussed the first thing, that is the skeleton of the code and the user input and output to a certain extent. We will be digging deep into this as we move forward. What is the next type? That is the data types. Now, we're talking about input and output. Now, if you're taking a number in, you have to store it somewhere in your program. That is the place where you store. That can be a data type. Okay, now imagine you're taking a number like 10, 12, minus 5. What will you use to store it? So there is a data type known as int, integer. Now this is how you can write comments in C++. If you give double backslash, you can write any comment. So integer, what does comment means? Those lines of code will not be executed. So this line will not be executed when the program is executed. So int is the data type. In order to assign anything to integer data type, you have to write the data type and then a variable name. Variable name can be anything. It can be Raj, it can be X, it cannot be a number. It cannot be a number. Okay, so it can be Raj1. That is okay. But it has to be something which has a character. So something like, let's say, I say X equal to 10. So this is how you assign something into an integer data type. But integer has certain restrictions. It can only store numbers from this range to this range. Beyond this, it cannot store. Beyond this, what will help you? Something like a long data type will help you. If you try to use long, it has a wider range. Same concept, you can use the same concept to store variables in long. If you want to take an input, this is how you take an input. If you write scene of X, the first number 10 will go into X. Okay, now what if you want to store bigger numbers than this? This is where something like long will come in. So if you're saying long, it will give you a wider range. Again, the same way you can store it like this, or maybe you can go ahead and store a very large number as well. So usually we will be using these three things to store any type of integers between a certain ranges. Okay, now what are the next data types that we will be using? We were talking about integers. What if we have something like, let's say 5.6, something like this. So it is having something after the decimal point. This is where something like we will be specifically using two data types, float and double. Again, they have ranges. Depending on the range that you use, you'll be using float or double. The ranges are visible on the screen. So we can use something like float. Again, same way. Float x equal to 5.6. Again, you can always store float y equal to 5 as well. It doesn't mean that, like, if I'm saying that it has to store decimal, it doesn't mean you can't store an integer. Now, if you go and say C out of y, like value of y, and then you say, okay, let's print this y. Let's see what it prints, okay? So if you see the value of, okay, it does give you an error. Okay, by the way, let's erase this because we have defined x twice. Okay, let's now compile this. You see, it is getting printed. Similarly, if you want to define this as double, it's still okay. We define this double, an integer can also be stored in a double, okay? So in data types, you have learned how to store numbers and numbers with decimal points. Now, what if you have a string or a character? How do you store that? So for that, what we will be using is something like a string and get line. So you have to learn these couple of things, okay? Now, imagine I write hey string. So this is an entire string. And the same way, I'll say string s, and I'll say cn of s, and I'll say c out of s, okay? Ideally, what should happen is this entire hey driver should go inside this string, and this should be printed. But let's see what will happen. If I run this, you will see just hey being picked up. And if you want to pick up striver, what you have to do is you have to define two strings. If you want to define two strings in a same line, comma will be the thing, or you can go ahead and say string s2, and over here s1, and then you can say s2, and over here s1, and then you can give a space, and then s2. So what will happen? Now if you do, first s1 is picked up as hey, then s2 is picked up as striver, then both of them are printed with a space, right? So if you're saying string, then what happens is it only picks up anything before the space, and after the space, it's a new string. So you have to again give a cn. Now, in case you want to take everything together in a string, how do you do that? In order to do that, you have to probably define a string, and then you have to use something like getLine. Inside the getLine, you have to write cn. What is getLine? Again, do not need to dig deep. It's an internal function. You have to write cn, and then you have to give this variable over here, and then you go ahead and say c out of str. So what will happen is this getLine will take the entire line and put it into the str. And now if you print, you will see this hey driver is printed, or maybe hey driver I am school. And if you print this, you'll see the entire line is getting printed. But if you go to the next line, hey Raj, will the entire line be picked up? Let's run this. No, the next line is not picked up. Only this particular line is picked up. So the moment you click enter, the next line will not be picked up. So it just picks up till the line break. So string and getLine is used to take any of the string. So you've talked about string and getLine. Now it's time to talk about character. Now there are 256 characters in English dictionary. So character can store all of them. Yes, character can store all of them. So imagine if you have something like an h. So you can just go ahead and declare char ch, and you can take cn of ch, okay? And then you can say c out of ch. So what will happen is this h will go inside this, and it will be printed over here. If you want to declare a character, you can go ahead and declare this as g. So single quotes is what will be used to declare a character. You can also declare it as string, but usually string will be within double quotes. That is also okay. But string ends up taking much more space. That is why if it's a single character, we tend to use something like a char. So, okay, so these are the data types that I have used till now to solve all the problems in DS Algo. Did I require anything else? No. In case I've required for a single problem, like one problem here or there, I have done a Google search and I've used that. But I can assure you that if you know this, that is more than enough. Now you must be having a lot of questions. So if we have something like a 10, and that 10 can be stored in all the 3 or all the 5, why can't we use simply long or maybe double? Now the thing is, everything takes up a certain space in your computer. Now you can't be like, you can't use long to store 10. That will not make sense because it will end up eating up a lot more memory space. So integer takes a certain memory, long does take a certain memory. So everything will take a certain memory. So depending on that, we decide what to use. Now integer has a range. Now those numbers you can't remember. So what I usually do is I keep a rounding of number. Like I know integer will be from minus 10 to the power 9 to 10 to the power 9, like rounding off. Long will be minus 10 to the power 12 to 10 to the power 12. Long will be minus 10 to the power 18 to 10 to the power 18. So whenever there is something as 10 to the power 13, I switch to long. First, third thing, if else statements. Write a program that takes an input of age and prints if you are an adult or not. So the skeleton is something which I've written, and this is the program. So let's break down the problem. It states, write a program, maybe I've written the skeleton, that takes an input of age. Now you know one thing, age will be what? An integer, 18 or maybe double. Imagine the age we are talking in terms of integer. And we know you're called an adult when you're greater than 18, correct? So imagine I go ahead and say, if you are stating, okay, if something happens, perform these lines of code. If that thing doesn't happen, go and perform these lines. Okay. So I'm saying if the age is greater than or equal to 18, then go and perform this. Yes. We'll go ahead. See what will happen. You're giving 15. I'm taking 15. False. Goes to else. And else condition says less than 10. When I run, it doesn't run. Why? False. Again false. No execution. But the moment you give something as 9, see what will happen. The moment you give it 9, it prints Y. Goes here. False. Goes to the else. And he says 9 lesser than 10. Yes. Goes ahead and prints this. This is how something like a if and an else if block works. Got it? So let's now move on to a complex problem so that you can understand the conditional statements in depth. So this is how you can write the multi-line comments. Since I had an entire problem statement, I put them under multi-line comment. So backslash asterisk is how you can do it. For single line, it is very simple, double backslash, but front slash or backslash, whatever you call it. So this is how you can write the multi-line comment. So the problem is very simple. A school has following rules for grading system. Below 25 grade F, 25 to 44 grade E, 45 to 49 grade D, and so on. So your task is to ask user to enter marks and print the corresponding grade. Okay. So what is the first stating? Get the marks. So imagine I have to take the marks. So this is how I'll take the marks. This is something which we know. What is the next line? Below 25. Very, very importantly, below 25. So I'm saying if the marks are below 25, can I say the grade is for sure F? That is something which I definitely know. If the marks are below 25, I know the grade is F. If the mark is between this, can I write if the marks? Now over here, there are two conditions. Should be from 25 and should be till 44. So can I say should be greater than 25 and if you have multiple conditions, if you want to satisfy multiple conditions, you say and marks lesser than equal to 44. This is how you satisfy multiple. First condition and second condition. And then you say C out E. Similarly, you can go ahead and write all the if conditions. So what I've done is I've written all the conditions. You see, all the conditions are written. Let's say the marks is 85 and see which condition accordingly. So if the age is smaller than 18, you can print this and all the conditions are given to you. So something we know for sure is we need age, right? So we can take the scene of some out. Very simple. This is how you can easily write it. So if else, now what's the next thing? We'll be completing the switch statement. So we are talking about switch statement. So we will be taking this problem in order to understand the switch. It is similar to if else. We generally don't use switch that much, but it is handy to know the switch statements as well. So what is the problem stating? Take the day number and print the corresponding day. For 1, if they're giving the day number as 1, you have to print Monday. For 2, you have to print Tuesday, and so on. For 7, you have to print Sunday. So they'll be giving you a number between 1 and 7. So the syntax of switch is super simple. So you take the, let's say the number, the day number, same day. So whatever variable you're taking, on that you have to write the switch. It's kind of a switch. So you say switch day, okay? And then you open the braces. So on the basis of the day, the switch will be triggered. Okay, so you know the switch will be between 1 to 7 because they're saying the input will always be between 1 to 7. So you write case 1. Okay, so case, and then if this is an integer, you write the integer. If this was a character, then you could have written a character like this. Whatever is your switch, you write the same switch over here. So case 1 is the switch. And then you go ahead to write case 2 is a switch. And then you go ahead to write case 3 is a switch, and so on. So what I've done, Wednesday, please. So what will happen is, it will take the input as 5. Switch says 5. It's executed. Then it falls back on the default. So if you give something like as 19, it falls back on the default and you can say as invalid. So this is the last executed step. So you don't need to give a break because after this, it automatically breaks out. So imagine if you give 19, what will happen is it will go ahead and say invalid and then go over here. If you don't give a break here, and if you give something like C out, invalid check, can you guess what will happen? Because you're not giving a break. See what happens. Invalid, and then the last line of the switch is also executed. But the moment you write break, it breaks out. It doesn't execute this. So whenever you write break, it will take you out from all the conditional loops or all the conditional braces that it has above it. Got it? Clear? That is why people tend to use if else because that is more readable. But yeah, it is handy to know switch. So just in order to know, just know it. So we are done with the switch statement. Now we will be knowing the basics of arrays and strings. Now arrays will be covered in depth. Over here, we will be covering 41 problems and strings will be covered on the upcoming lectures. But we use arrays is the integers. Apparently all these 4 integers, one by one, will go into these 4 variables. A diagrammatic representation. 0th index.
अगर आप एक JEE 2025 एस्पिरेंट है, दिस वीडियो इज फॉर यू. इट विल बी वेरी लकी फॉर यू. अब मैं आपको ये बताना चाहता हूँ क्यों. बहुत सारे बच्चे जब 11 से
or every location of that 3rd index, seconds at 3. Yes, and if you print this, let's see if 7 was stored. You saw. So what happened was these 5 numbers went in and were stored in these places consecutively. So when you access the 3rd index, it means the 4th element got accessed and you got the 4th element. Can you modify these? Yes, you can. If you want to do operations on them, you can. Imagine then you can store similar data array. You can treat it similarly to an integer data type. Got it? So this is how you can store similar data like together. And the container used is array. And there are multiple other containers as well. I have talked about that in the C++ STL video. You can definitely check it out as well. So we got to know what is an array. And the most important thing is everything has to be of a similar data type. You can't be saying 7.7. If you say 7.7, what will happen is since you declared this to be an integer data type, this 7.7 will trim itself to an integer and hence it will be stored as 7. Got it? If there is a double data type, maybe you can store double. And if you say double, then 7.7 is stored. Whatever data type you give, that has to be constant for all the elements. That is the key point. Okay. So that was about the array. Now, where is the array stored? We know it is 0th index, first index, but the entire thing is taken and stored in a memory location. Yes, the entire thing is taken and stored in a memory location. So this guy, 0th index, is stored at a particular memory. And that memory can be of any address. That address is very randomized. Now, the moment I say, I need 5 boxes, but I need them 3 times. One, talk about I'll have. What it means is, I'll have 3 5 boxes. If I show you diagrammatically, this is what I'll have. 3, 1, 2, 3, 5 boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5 boxes is what I'll have. So this is what it means. This is the row number. We generally call this as row and this as column. And if I talk about the indexing over here, again, the indexing starts from 0. And this is how the indexing goes. You see 0, 1, 2, and this is 0. So this guy is known as 0, 0. This guy is known as 0, 1. This guy is known as 0, 2. This guy is known as 0, 3. So this is how the naming or the row and column goes. If I say 1, 3, so here is 1 and here is 3. 76. The value will be 76. If I say, give me the value at 1, 3, the value will be 76. Again, if you want to assign, like it'll be like A1, 3 equal to, you can say 78. And then you can go ahead and say C out of A1, 3. We will be seeing the use of 2D matrix a lot. We'll be solving a bunch of problems. Don't worry about that. So this will be array and this will be array. So if you go ahead and print this, you'll be seeing that we're actually getting 78 at this location. And for the locations that you have not defined, they'll be assigning themselves some garbage value. It can be any value. Like if you try to define print 1, 2, you'll see it is having a garbage value. Like if you try to print it again, it will have different values. Every time you print, it has some garbage value that comes in from the system because you did not initialize. The only guy that you initialized one was the first row and the third column in terms of zero-based indexing. Very important. In arrays, we have zero-based indexing. Okay. When is 2D array used? It is used to solve a lot of matrix problems, a lot of graph problems, which you'll be dealing with in the future. Okay. As of now, just know this is what we know as 2D array. This is the row, this is the column, and it goes as row and column. That's it. That is what you have to keep in your head as of now. So in the SQL video, I've talked about a lot of functions related to arrays, vectors, list, and a lot of other things. So you can definitely check that video after this one. So we have known about arrays in basics. Now let's talk about string. So imagine this is the string that I'm having. String s equal to string. And now I want to access I. So the string also stores every character in terms of indexes. So s will be at the 0th index. So if you try to print something like c out of s of 0, what will happen? See, s will be printed. If you say s of 1, see what happens. T will be printed. If you say s of 2, you know what will be printed. R. So every character makes up a string. So all of these are characters. You can't do something like this and expect this to work. If you do this, it will not work and it will give the characters at every index. And characters, when gets added, makes up a string. So all of these are characters. You can't do something like this and expect this to work. If you do this, it will not work and it will give you errors. You see, errors. So since it is a character, you have to assign it with a character. So string is storing characters within itself. So if you know about this and the length function, eventually we will be solving a lot of string problems. And there you can easily get on with strings. So we're done with arrays and strings. Now it's time to do for loops and while loops. And as of now, I'll be talking about basics. Eventually, we'll be solving a bunch of patterns. And once you end up solving all these patterns using for loops, trust me, your logical thinking, your concept of for loops will be super strong. And then we'll move on to solving maths and everything using the for loops and while loops. And eventually, in the entire DSA, for loops, if you don't know for loops, you can't do anything. So please stay focused. So what is for loops? Why is it used? Imagine I say you, hey, print your name. So I'll be like, see out. Okay, what's mine? My name is Fredo. And I'll print it 5 times. Done. 5 times print. Print it 500 times. 500. That's a lot. This is why for loop comes. For loop says, same line of code. Why do you want to write it again and again? I'll do it. So what for loop says is, hey, same line of code, right? Write it once. And then enclose it inside me. Inside me, enclose it. And the for loop says, okay, my syntax is very simple. Say for, what is the variable that you want to go across? How many times you want to run? Put up a variable for that. I'll run it for 5 times or 500 times. What is the initial? First, I equal to 1. Variable declaration, I equal to 1. Variable declaration. This only gets executed for the first iteration. Only gets executed for the first iteration. Then condition at which I'll stop. The for loop will stop. The looping will stop. So I'll be like, the condition is 10. I'm saying, till I don't reach 10, I'll not stop. And at every step, I have to do something. If I don't do, I will forever stay 1. And if I stay forever 1, this condition will always be true. And if it is always true, that line of code will run. And it'll never end. This is where something like increment or decrement, your wish, comes in. And I say, this is the line that I use. I want to execute. And I go ahead and write this line. Now what happens is, see what will happen. I'll tell you how it happens. Oh, 10 times, exactly 10 times, try to call printed. What happened was, first initialization, I equal to 1. First time, I is 1. I less than 10, yes, goes. Oh, sorry, my bad. If you want to print the value of I, maybe go like this. Oh, sorry, maybe like this. And yeah, proceed. See the value of I. 5. I want to convert this exact similar for loop into a while loop. So the while loop does the same thing. The task is same. Whenever I attach something like loop, the task remains same. Executing some lines of code for some number of times. We do the same thing. And yeah, the only difference is the syntax changes. While executes like this, whatever is the condition will go here. And whatever is the increment goes at the end, goes at the last line. whatever is the increment, goes at the last line. Okay. And the initialization goes over here. First time initialization happens. While says 1 is lesser than equal to 5, fine. Go ahead and do C out of Trevor. And if you want to print i's value, you can also check it out. So if I go ahead and do endl, you'll see the value. See. Perfect. So what happens? Check, print, increase, check, print, increase. First check, goes inside, increases, comes back, checks, prints, increases. Very simple. This is how a while loop executes. So this is about while loop. Now while has one more concept, and that concept is do while loop. Okay. Now what does do while mean? So can I say if I keep I equal to 2 and I keep something like this, will it execute? The answer to that is no, because I is 2, the condition is false, never executes, goes to this, ends the program. So do while says you don't know the condition, because when you're writing code in industry or maybe you're solving a problem, a lot of times the condition might be user dependent or you might have such use cases. So you always want one thing to happen, that is you want your line of code to be executed minimum for one time. Minimum for one time. That is when you say, okay, if I want it to be executed for minimum of one time, I will write something like do, and I'll put this condition for over here at the end, and then I'll be doing the same thing. So what will happen is, even if the INDI is defined as 2 and the condition doesn't execute because it doesn't allow me, and then you end it with a semicolon. Even if the condition doesn't allow me, do says do it for the first. Go ahead, do it for the first, then increment, then check, then do. So if you say I equal to 2, see what Driver 2 gets printed. And then if you see the value of I at the end of the while loop, let's print. What will happen? The value of I was 2, you printed driver. I increased to 3, and 3 was lesser than equal to 1, and it got ended. But do will make sure the first time it gets executed, irrespective of what condition you are given. So this is the basic, like you can define it here, you can define it before this, that is your choice. But this is the basic of for and while loops. So I can say this is the basic of for and while loops. Eventually, when we solve these amazing set of patterns, the concept of the for and while loops will get more and more into your head, and you'll be very strong in logical thinking. And eventually you can apply for loops in maths, recursion, and all the other problems. Okay, what's the next thing? Functions, pass by reference, and pass by value. Functions is very, very important because we'll be using functions throughout. Yes, throughout. To solve any problems, we will be writing functions. So please make sure you understand functions in a proper depth. So let's start with functions. What are functions? Functions are a set of code which performs something for you. Now, if I want someone to do something for me, like for example, if I want to order food, I can say I can deliver food from a food delivery app, and that will bring me in food. So you can say functions are similar. You want it to do something, you'll give it or maybe something, and it will do that for you. That is the role of a function. Why are functions used? Functions are used to modularize code. Now, a lot of times you'll be having hundreds and hundreds of line string. But if someone from outside same code, the other one is where it doesn't give me something. And then I'll write the function name. I have to print the names. So I'll just write print name. And in that, I'll put this. So it did not return me anything. It's a void. It will never return you anything. And this is the function name. And this is a non-parameter. It will not carry any parameter. Whenever you enclose it within parentheses and there is nothing inside it, it doesn't carry a parameter. So it does this. Now over here, if you just run this will not be executing this function because this is outside the main. You know the skeleton of the code is executing anything that is inside the int main, and the function is outside. So what you do is you say print a name and you execute this. Now what will happen is int main will come, print a name will happen, and then it will go across and execute the line of code. See, ACE driver executed. Now imagine I say take an input and print the name. Take this name. Print name will say, okay, please give me this. What? Oh, by the way, string. What is the data type of this thing? It says string. I'm passing the name, but it gives you red. Why? Because this guy is not taking any parameters, but I'm giving it name. I'll say, okay, what are you giving me? You're giving me a string. I'll take the string. I'll take the string. When I've taken the string, now I'll say, hey, can I say name? See what will happen. This function took this name and printed. Now this moment when you say Raj, see what happens. Hey Raj. If you say Striver, it will say, hey Striver. If you say Aman, it will say, hey Aman. Simple. This function, what is the function of this function? Takes a name and prints a name. Very simple. It can take any name. So you can maybe use it again. See string, name 2. And you can maybe take name 2 and you can say print name. See reusability of codes. I'm using the code again and again. And I can say, okay, Aman and then Raj. And maybe over here, let's give an endl so that every time it says hey, you like see what happens. Hey Aman, hey Raj. Now, had you written this line, you'd have written it again and again and again. So this is where reusability of code comes in. Now this is not under, like you can maybe put it under for loop, that is okay. But if there will be cases where you cannot use for loops, but you have to use shuttle lines of code again at different places. That is where something like a function comes in. So I can call this as a void function and as well as a parameterized function. So you have understood void, you have understood.
FlexJobs is the #1 job site to find remote work from home and flexible.
Understood parameterized, we have understood non-parameterized. Okay, now the next question that we will do is take two numbers and imagine this. It always takes two numbers. So there can be two parameters. There can be then the remaining lines will be executed on a. There are a lot of inbuilt functions as well. These functions are similarly written. So if you have to write a max function, how will you write? It will be very simple. It will be like num1, num2. And I know if I'm looking for max, if num1 conditional statement greater than num2, I can say that my max is num1. So, right? Or else I can say is my max is num2. Now there is something you cannot name the function with the same name to make it max. Okay. So because of inbuilt max function exists, so you have to give the function such a name. Right? Make sure you do that. So we did learn about functions. When the bracket it is written pass by reference and value. Let's understand what that means. So let's just take a number just in order to understand and do something. And we write a function, do something, and pass the number. Okay. And we go over here and write void. You know this is a function. So write do something and we take this number and maybe print it. And go ahead, change this number, let's say add 5 to it, again print it. And maybe again add a 5 to it and again print it. So what will be the expected value? I'm sending 10, so 10 will be printed. Then plus 5, 15, then 20. So ideally it should be 10, 15, 20. It is. But what did I say about the execution? How does the execution works? So it is like the first line is executed, then it calls it. So it goes here, this is executed, this is executed, this is, then this, then this, and then the line 21, then the 22, then ends at 23. So ideally, if I print it here, what should happen? Ideally, according to your number was 10, it went here, 10, 15, 20, finished, 21. At 21, it should be again 20 because the last value was 20, so it should be 20, right? Let's do. We run this. 10, 15, 20, 20 till here. But the moment it came to the line 21, the value was 10 again. Why? This is what we call as pass by value. What happens is, when you call functions and you pass number, it goes by value. A copy goes, then the original number did not go. The original number did not go. This original number must be somewhere in the memory. That original memory did not go. What it created was, it said, you're 10. Let me create a copy. Send that copy. I'm not sending original. I'm not sending original. This guy took the original. He said, you're 10. Copy. Take the copy and give it to the function. And the function took the copy, did everything with the copy. So he changed, he modified the copy. So since he modified the copy, the original value still stayed the same. This is what we call as pass by value. Okay, this does work with everything. Like let's assign string s equal to Raj. And imagine you pass the string s, and let's omit this, and let's say string s again. And over here, assume you say s0 equal to, instead of Raj, I say Taj, t. And I print the string s. And over here also I print the string s. So ideally over here, if I'm changing s0 to t, Raj will become Taj, right? And then when it comes back, s is again printed. So what should happen? Yes, first it got changed, but since I did not pass the original, I passed the copy. Since I passed the copy, what happened was only the copy got changed and the original still stayed the same. This is what we call as pass by value. Now, there's something as pass by reference. What is this pass by reference? I don't want to pass a copy. I want my function to make changes on the original one. That's when you just attach an and to it. If you attach an and to it, it takes the address. So whatever you're sending over here, it takes the original and sends it. So this string, whenever you say s, it actually is dealing with the original. So let's now compile and see. So if you compile and see, you see it changed here and the same prevailed over here. This is what you call as pass by reference. Understood? If you're passing like this and sign will say that, okay, get it from the address, get the original value. Okay. Now this pass by reference can be written in a lot of other ways, but I personally feel the other ways are very, very confusing. The easiest way is just attach and sign, and that will make sure that it is passed by reference. The original value is passed. So if you want to pass the integer, similarly you can do integer num equal to 10, and you can pass a num here, and let's print the num here, and again take int. You can just pass the num here, and you can go ahead and say, let's do the same thing. C out of num and l, and over here you can say num plus equal to 5. Again you can say C out of num and l. Again you can say num plus equal to 5. Now you were declaring the array like 5, and imagine there are like 5 values, 10, 7, 12, 13. Till now, all these values, you were kind of taking like cn array of 0, cn array of 1, cn array of 2, cn array of 3, cn array of 4. This is how you took, and eventually you were printing it array of 0, array of 1. And what are you taking? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I write something like this? 0. I know I have to go till 4. Okay, I know how to do this. I know this. Can I say cn array of I? Can I do this? Can I do this? Cn of array of I? What will happen? What's the first value of I? 0. So 0. Array of 0 will get in. So 5 will get in. Then what's the value of 5? 1. So 10 will get in. Array of 1. Right? And then what's the value of 5? So if you try to print the value of 5, if you remember for loops. Sorry, my bad. See what will happen. The value of 5 is 0. So array of 0 is taken. Next, the value of 5 is 1. Arrays are generally passed by reference. If you write this, this is how you pass an array. So imagine this is the array I took as an input. And I said do something. And I said, can you please take this array and maybe the size of the array? And the size of the array is 5. So you can go ahead and maybe declare it in a better way. This. Yeah, that's a better way. And maybe you can loop till n-1 or you can loop till n. That is your choice. You can do whatever you.
Did you just find your dream job posted online? You quickly grab your good old resume and press send. You do this for another job, and another, and another. But unfortunately, most of the responses you get are the same. You rarely land an interview. So what's up about that? The good news is it's not about you. Turns out, you can be perfectly
Are meaning the exact same thing. So over here, I'll take everything. Now what I'll do is I will go across to every value of, or maybe to just understand array of 0, I will go ahead and add plus equal to maybe 100 to it. And over here I'll print array of value inside function. Okay, and I'll say array of 0 please get printed. Okay, and I'll say value inside into main after the function. Okay, value inside into main. Let's see if that got added. Do you see this? It stays 105. I did not pass it with reference, but array always goes with reference. So please keep this in mind. If you're passing an array, I will always go with reference. But apart from that, vector, maps, list, everything, you have to pass that and sign to make sure that it is passed by reference. Got this? So whatever you do over here with the arrays, that will be definitely modified throughout. So with this, we learn functions passed by reference and value. Time complexity is the next one, which I'll be covering in the next video, because time complexity in itself is a very